This is it, the final race of this year's U.S. Speed Tour. I want to say one last special thank you to Motoflix for making this all possible. Their vision and investment have been just unparalleled in the world of motorsport. So here's looking at many more years of their involvement with the USST. I'll tell you what, a track like this is a dream come true for a racing fan. I spent my childhood building slot car sets, imagining what the future of racing might be. And here, today, hey, I really feel like I'm looking at it. Hope you are too. Hey, here's a fun fact for you. Over 24 commercial scuba divers worked on the construction of these courses, installing massive concrete support pylons up to 500 feet tall. They've been down there inspecting structural integrity after every race. Just another reminder of how much work it takes to make the USST possible. You know, these twisting curves were quite difficult to build, but they were always seen as a core feature of the tracks. They twist for the same reason a roller coaster does, because when you reduce that lateral shear against the tires, there's no reason to ever slow down. You know, it takes a special kind of driver to enjoy speeds this extreme. Because, let's face it, one mistake here and you are at the bottom of Lake Michigan. Massive respect to everyone out there today. I really mean that. Here we are at race 1 of the U.S. Speed Tour's brand new circuit over Lake Michigan. And it's a glorious day to break some records. Between the aerodynamic curves and those innovative suction zones, we should see some very impressive top speeds today. I'll let the track say the rest because it's Speed Tour time. The team who planned the building of this circuit scouted a lot of possible locations. Gulf of Mexico, Hudson Bay, Prince William Sound, but settled on the only one of the Great Lakes bordered entirely by the USA. And from what I'm seeing, wow, they really made the right choice. Fastest part of the course right here, no reason to slow down, and wow, these cars are really putting the speed in U.S. Speed Tour. Woo! Here we are today in the Windy City on the southwest bank of Lake Michigan on an absolutely gorgeous race day afternoon. Many thanks to the mayor of Chicago for agreeing to host us today. And best of luck to our drivers as they kick off this last race of the USST season. Coming up full throttle on turn 1 now, and the site of the famous 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Looks like we're coming in pretty fast towards a hairpin turn just up ahead. And that brings us to the end of this last race of the U.S. Speed Tour. What an amazing series of races this has been for our drivers and for everyone watching at home. We'll be back in a few months with something new and very special. So keep your eye on Motorflix, and I'll see you soon.